we needed to cover all of the genres of music, which meant, technically speaking, we had a total of 262 inputs. Because it's kind of film score, we did it in full surround, 5.1. I say 5.1 using the Dolby term. It was essentially matrixed together so that we had PA left, right, subs, fills, and surround left, surround right in arenas. There was also some playback because obviously there's lots and lots of layers in Zimmer's music. And the main problem that I foresaw was bleed from all of these instruments, going into the orchestral mics. So quite early on, we made the decision, and luckily the band were very up for it, to try and make the stage as silent as possible. So all of the guitars were running through Kempers, so there were no guitar cabs on stage. The bass ended up with a bass cab, but at the frequencies down there, it wasn't such a problem. It was about as silent as you could get. Everyone was on in-ears. We had a silent stage, apart from drums, obviously, timpani, the acoustic instruments, the violins, violas, etc., and the choir. And that gave us a fighting chance of getting some separation and control. Mic-wise, the violins were all clip-on DPAs, drums, Sennheiser all rounds, obviously lots of DIs, and it all went through. We had an SD7 out front, SD7 at monitors, and an SD11 submixing the choir and orchestra, all on one fibre loop. What became quite interesting was the fact that because everyone was on IEMs, Gavin on monitors had 42 mixes to deal with, which meant that he couldn't take all the inputs because he'd run out of processing power. So I was sending quite a few stems down the fibre loop to Gavin. So he was sending submixes to people, which was generated from me, because he simply couldn't take that input count. And frankly, even if he could, he wouldn't be able to manage, doing 42 mixes with 260 inputs. So that way, it was all about trying to reduce workflow for everyone. Talking of other bits of tech, the show itself, because there was playback on every track to some extent, it was all on click, but we had QLab being our master for the show, which was basically generating timecode and MTC. MTC internally to drive streamers, because we were using, I don't know if, for those that don't know what streamers is, it's a virtual conductor. So on video screens we had bars and beats and wipes going across, and that's what the choir and orchestra mainly followed. They had IEMs as well, so they had click and bits, but that was it's just a freer way of syncing everything together than just relying on a click, because again it's that human nature of if everyone is just listening to a click, there's no real feel, and your drummer and bass player will just go insane, and that kind of gave us a bit of freedom. And LTC was triggering Pro Tools, which was our playback main and backup, but also we were sending it to stage because all of the keyboard rigs were running Cubase, which was locking to our timecode as well, so that we could do the program changes for the keyboard players. Lighting and video obviously took timecode, and what it did was it enabled me as an engineer to concentrate on listening to things, because what I haven't mentioned is that timecode did all of my snapshot recalls. Because the nature of the medleys, there were some very large musical changes going on, like that. So I automated all of that, which meant that basically on 24 faders in front of me, I had everything that I needed for that moment, which again is quite a theatrical way of doing things. When you're doing a theatre musical, you don't have, your 50 vocal mics all sitting down here. You just plonk the ones you need for that section in front of you on your VCAs or DCAs. And we had the same approach on Zimmer, because with that channel count, you kind of needed to group it together in a structured way like that to make it manageable. At which point it ended up being a joy to mix, because all the boring resetty stuff that you normally have to do was just dealt with for you. And I could just concentrate on mixing the pieces. I don't think I've got a favourite mic as such, because I've got different favourite mics for different usage. Obviously, a vocal mic isn't going to be, appropriate for an overhead orchestral mic. I mean, if you said you can only have one microphone in the world, I'd say a KM184, because you can put that on anything and it'll work. It's a great vocal mic with a pop shield. It's a great orchestral mic. It's great for drum overheads. My favourite vocal mic of all time is a U47. But at the end of the day, if you put a 58 on a vocal or a 57 on anything else, you'll have a gig. So it kind of varies, but yeah, the KM range is great.